Virgo, have you ever noticed how just being around certain people makes you feel tired, anxious, or like you're slowly losing yourself? That's not a coincidence. You're not being too sensitive. You're absorbing toxic energy. There are 3 zodiac signs, just 3 that can completely derail your peace of mind if you don't recognize the signs in time. One of them is so emotionally manipulative, it'll have you apologizing for having boundaries. Sound familiar? This isn't about astrology for fun. This is about your energy, your clarity, your sanity. In the next few minutes, I'm going to name them, break them down, and help you finally understand why these people always leave you feeling off. Stay with me. This could change everything. Let's be clear about something right now. This video is not about blaming or shaming anyone for their zodiac sign. It's about understanding a hidden pattern that keeps showing up in your life as a Virgo over and over again. Because if you don't spot these dynamics early on, they will keep draining your energy, your joy, and your sense of inner peace. And the worst part, you might keep blaming yourself for things that were never your fault to begin with. Virgo, you are not just another sign. You are wired differently. You feel things deeply, but you don't always show it. You carry the weight of responsibility even when no one asks you to. You bring order into chaos and find calm in the middle of storms. But because of that, some people see you as an easy fix. They think your desire to help means you'll carry their mess forever. That's the trap. You've probably been told to loosen up, to stop overthinking, to let things go. But let's be honest, has that ever worked for you? Has trying to be less yourself ever made you happier? The truth is, you weren't born to blend in. You were born to bring clarity where others bring confusion, and that scares people who thrive in chaos. So let me ask you something. Have you ever left a conversation feeling like you ran a mental marathon? Like you were gaslighted into thinking your reasonable boundaries were too much? That's not a coincidence. That's what it feels like when your energy is being manipulated. And maybe you already have a name in mind. A person who always makes you feel like you're doing too much, when all you want is peace and consistency. If someone popped into your mind just now, don't wait until the end of the video. Go ahead and drop their zodiac sign in the comments. Let's see if your intuition is as sharp as I know it is. We're about to break down the 3 signs that create the most toxic dynamics for Virgo energy. And I promise you, by the end of this video, you won't just understand them. You'll finally understand why it always felt so hard. Let's start with the sign that often flies under the radar when it comes to emotional toxicity, Gemini. On the surface, they're fun, lighthearted, clever, and engaging. They have this energy that pulls people in, especially Virgo, who tends to admire intelligence and wit. But once you get close, the dynamic starts to shift in a way that's subtle and then chaotic. Here's the problem. Gemini's duality can feel like a constant emotional whiplash for Virgo. One moment they're all in, calling you brilliant, saying they need your help, that they want to build something together. The next moment, they disappear without a word, dodge responsibilities, or shift the entire plan without telling you. Virgo, who thrives on clarity, structure, and follow-through, is left completely disoriented. Now, you might think this is just a personality clash, but it's deeper than that. What makes this toxic is how the chaos is wrapped in charm. Gemini knows how to talk their way out of anything. They can mess up a project, vanish for days, and then come back with a smile and a story so captivating that you forget you were angry. And because Virgo often gives people the benefit of the doubt, especially those they care about, you start believing that maybe you were overreacting. Maybe you were being too rigid. Maybe you should loosen up. But here's the truth, you weren't being rigid. You were being responsible. You were trying to maintain balance and consistency, something that should never be up for negotiation in healthy relationships. problem isn't your expectations. It's that you're dealing with someone who sees your efforts as optional and your boundaries as flexible. Let's talk about how this shows up. You agree on something, a deadline, a shared responsibility, even a simple plan like showing up on time. But then the Gemini switches up. They change their mind, forget their commitment, or blame something unexpected. Virgo ends up cleaning up the mess, not once, not twice, over and over. You justify it. You say things like, they just have a lot going on, or they didn't mean to, or maybe I need to be more patient. But each time, you are slowly being trained to abandon your own standards to accommodate instability. That's the real danger. You start doubting your gut. You begin asking yourself, am I too controlling, too demanding? This kind of repeated energetic disruption isn't just frustrating, it's disorienting. Over time, it conditions you to lower your expectations. And when you lower your expectations, you lower your standards. That's when the real damage begins. Let me give you a real example. A Virgo woman once shared that her Gemini partner would constantly invite her into these exciting business ideas. At first, it was thrilling. She loved the creativity, the vision. But every time she started organizing the steps to make things happen, he would lose interest. He'd pivot, abandon the plan, or worse, say she was killing the vibe. She began to feel like her natural gifts, planning, organizing, grounding, were a problem. That's the Gemini effect. It convinces Virgo that their strengths are actually weaknesses. So how do you protect yourself? First, recognize the signs early. Is someone constantly changing plans, ghosting, dodging responsibility, or flipping the script when things don't go their way? That's not spontaneity, that's instability. And it's not your job to manage it. Second, stop giving endless chances to people who only show up when it benefits them. Charm without consistency is manipulation, not connection. Don't confuse words with actions. And finally, Virgo, remember this. Your clarity is a gift. Your ability to create order, follow through, and commit is rare. If someone makes you feel like those qualities are burdens rather than blessings, they are not your people. Some Geminis can grow, some can learn to honor the stability you bring, but if they repeatedly make you feel like you're asking too much just by wanting the bare minimum commitment, honesty, responsibility, it's time to pull back. You don't have to fix their chaos. You don't have to shrink to fit their pace. Let their inconsistency be their burden, not yours. You were never asking for too much. You were just asking the wrong person. And here's something else to think about. When a Virgo starts over-functioning in a relationship, it doesn't just drain your energy, it also rewires your sense of what's acceptable. You become the manager of the relationship. You follow up, you remind, you organize, you carry it forward. But here's the hidden cost. You lose your spontaneity, your creativity, your rest. You become so busy compensating for their inconsistency that you forget what it feels like to just be without walking on eggshells. This is where the healing begins, recognizing that love should feel grounding, not confusing. Support should feel reliable, not conditional. You're not meant to be someone's emotional anchor while they drift. A healthy connection will meet you with stability, not just excitement. So if your pattern with a Gemini or anyone is one where you feel like you're always adapting, adjusting, and accommodating, take a step back. Ask yourself, who would I be if I stopped trying to hold everything together? Because maybe, just maybe, your energy was meant to build something stable with someone who actually shows up. Now let's talk about Sagittarius. At first glance, Sagittarius seems like a breath of fresh air. They're adventurous, spontaneous, full of big ideas and enthusiasm. They can be magnetic, drawing you in with their sense of humor, their zest for life, and their ability to make even the ordinary seem exciting. But for Virgo, that free-spirited energy can turn toxic fast. And not because freedom is bad, but because it's often used to dismiss what you value most: order, preparation, and emotional reliability. Here's what happens. Sagittarius is all about movement physically, mentally, emotionally. They don't like being pinned down. They crave freedom of expression, freedom from responsibility, and they can start to view Virgo's grounded nature as something that restricts or controls them. So what begins as admiration quickly shifts into resistance. The very qualities they once praised, your attention to detail, your structure, your caution, suddenly become things they mock or challenge. You'll hear things like, "You're overthinking again," or "just let it go," or "you take everything so seriously." And at first, you might brush it off. But over time, those little comments start to chip away at your confidence. You begin to wonder if your natural instincts are somehow wrong, if your need for preparation is a weakness instead of a strength. Let me be clear, there's nothing wrong with wanting clarity before leaping into something new. There's nothing wrong with double-checking the details. That's not fear, it's wisdom. But Sagittarius, especially in their toxic form, tends to treat structure like a trap. They want everything to feel free and flowing. And if you're not going with the flow, they label you the problem. Here's where it gets more dangerous. Toxic Sagittarius doesn't just push for freedom, they push for emotional detachment. They don't want to be pinned down in conversation, in plans, or in accountability. So when you try to bring up something serious, an issue, a pattern, or even an emotional need, they'll often sidestep, joke, or say you're making a big deal out of nothing. That leaves Virgo in a very painful spot. You want harmony, not conflict. So instead of pushing back, you start internalizing their avoidance. You tell yourself, maybe I am too sensitive, or maybe I just need to chill. But this is the turning point where Virgo starts to betray their own needs in order to keep the peace. One Virgo man shared how his Sagittarius partner would always undermine any attempt to plan. Birthdays, vacations, even simple dinner reservations, she'd scoff at the effort and change plans last minute just to keep things fun. He stopped planning altogether and began living in a constant state of low-level anxiety, never knowing what to expect. And here's the truth: when you take away Virgo's ability to prepare, you take away their peace. That anxiety builds. It becomes a constant hum in the background of the relationship. And the longer you stay in that energy, the more disconnected you become from yourself. You start to confuse flexibility with self-abandonment. You start to see your need for structure as something shameful. That's not growth. That's survival mode. So how do you heal from this? First, stop apologizing for needing a plan. Stop apologizing for wanting follow-through. Your need for stability isn't just a preference, it's a part of how you thrive. A relationship that constantly asks you to surrender, that is not honoring you, it's reshaping you. Second, ask yourself, are you adapting or are you disappearing? Because there's a big difference. One involves healthy compromise, the other is self-erasure. And third, notice the patterns. Does the person in your life respond to your boundaries with respect or with resistance? Do they make room for your process? Or do they push past it for the sake of their own comfort? Sagittarius can be a beautiful energy when balanced. When they choose to bring their fire without burning down the structure you built. But when they constantly make you feel uptight, controlling, or too much just for having normal emotional needs. It's a red flag, not a personality difference. Virgo, you were never too much. You were only too organized for someone who didn't want to be responsible. And there's a world of difference between the two. Let's take it a step further. Think about how much energy you've spent trying to make spontaneity feel safe when it never was. Think about the times you adjusted your own needs, your own rhythm, just to avoid being called boring or predictable. That's emotional labor. That's bending so far that eventually you forget how to stand tall. And the hardest part, They rarely notice the effort you put in to meet them halfway because they're too busy chasing the next thrill to acknowledge the ground you laid. But Virgo, you are the ground. You are the steady force that keeps things real. And someone who truly values you won't try to uproot that. They'll learn to dance within the structure, not tear it down. They'll realize that stability is not the enemy of freedom, it's the foundation of it. Now we come to Pisces, the most surprising and, frankly, the most dangerous match for Virgo when the energy turns toxic. Why? Because Pisces doesn't come at you with aggression or chaos. No, they approach with softness, with tears, with stories that touch your heart. And for someone like Virgo, who is naturally empathetic, who wants to help, who finds purpose in being useful, this is a trap you don't see coming until you're deep inside it. The toxic dynamic between Pisces and Virgo is not loud. It's quiet, like emotional erosion. One small situation at a time, Pisces presents themselves as misunderstood, overwhelmed, wounded by the world. And your instinct, Virgo, is to fix, to protect, to stabilize. You feel needed. You feel special. But soon, you find yourself carrying emotional weight that was never yours. You begin to notice patterns. Every crisis becomes your responsibility. Every emotional breakdown becomes your emergency. And when you finally try to express your own needs or boundaries, you're met with silence, tears, or worse, guilt. You become the villain in their victim story. Pisces energy, when distorted, is masterful at making you question your own intentions. You say something honest, and they tell you it hurt them deeply. You express a limit, and they cry as if you're abandoning them. So what do? You stay, you give, you overextend, and in doing so, you betray yourself. Let me give you a real example. A Virgo woman once shared that her Pisces partner never directly asked for help, but always managed to create situations where she felt obligated to step in, whether it was financial struggles, emotional instability, or family drama. He was always in crisis, and every time she tried to set a limit, he'd retreat into silence, post vague things online about being unloved, and make her feel like she was heartless. She began to apologize for asking for basic things: truth, consistency, respect. That's what emotional manipulation looks like when it wears the mask of sensitivity. It's not screaming or demanding. It's passive pressure, subtle guilt, and emotional blackmail. It makes you feel like setting a boundary is the same as inflicting harm. Virgo, you need to hear this. Your boundaries are not cruelty. Your desire for emotional clarity is not harsh. Wanting reciprocity doesn't make you selfish. These are normal, healthy needs. And if someone responds to them by acting wounded or accusing you of being cold, that says more about their manipulation than your morality. One of the hardest things for Virgo to accept is that some people don't want solutions. They want sympathy. They want someone to constantly pick up the pieces while they avoid accountability. And Pisces, in their toxic form, can be addicted to being rescued. They don't want healing, they want attention. And your beautiful, generous Virgo heart becomes the well they keep drawing from until you're dry. The worst part, you start to believe that the problem is you, that you're somehow emotionally inadequate, that your need for logic and honesty is unkind, that your standards are unrealistic. You start bending and bending until you barely recognize yourself. So how do you protect yourself from this? First, stop believing that love equals sacrifice. Real love respects your limits. It doesn't punish you for having needs. Second, pay attention to how you feel after every interaction. Are you calm and grounded or confused and anxious? Your body knows the truth long before your mind does. And third, give yourself permission to walk away from dynamics that drain you, no matter how fragile the other person seems. You are not their savior. You are not their therapist. You are not responsible for fixing someone who won't take ownership of their own healing. Pisces, when evolved, can be deeply compassionate, creative, and spiritually attuned. But when unhealed, they become emotional shapeshifters, blurring the lines between truth and illusion, between care and control. And for Virgo, who craves clarity and consistency, that's not just frustrating, it's soul-crushing. You were not put on this earth to abandon yourself for the comfort of someone who doesn't want to grow. You were made to love deeply, yes, but also to stand firmly in your truth. You can be kind and still say no. You can be empathetic and still walk away. You can care without carrying, because real healing doesn't happen in relationships where one person gives everything and the other gives excuses. It happens in balance, in honesty, in mutual effort. And you, Virgo, deserve exactly that. Now that you've seen how these three signs, Gemini, Sagittarius, and Pisces, can twist your energy and flip your values upside down, it's time for the moment that matters most. Because awareness without action is just regret waiting to happen. So let's talk about what you do now, Virgo. Let's talk about power. Your power first. You need to rewrite the story you've been telling yourself. You are not too much. You are not too structured, too intense, or too demanding. What you are is clear, focused, grounded, and intentional. The people who told you otherwise weren't offering you truth. They were reacting to how your clarity made them uncomfortable. Let that sink in. Your standards felt threatening because they exposed their lack of consistency. Your boundaries felt controlling because they were used to getting away with chaos. Your need for honesty felt harsh because it interrupted their emotional manipulation. But none of that is a reflection of your flaws. It's a reflection of their discomfort with your strength. Every time you stayed quiet to keep the peace. Every time you said yes when your soul screamed no. Every time you gave someone another chance, hoping this time they'd show up differently, those moments weren't failures. They were lessons. Lessons that are now giving you the tools to step into the next version of yourself. Because Virgo, you're not here to carry broken dynamics. You're here to build sacred structures within yourself and in the relationships around you. And anyone who can't respect that doesn't belong in the life you're designing. It's time to stop shrinking to protect someone else's comfort. It's time to stop apologizing for needing respect, reliability, and emotional maturity. Those aren't high standards. They're bare minimums, and you're allowed to require them. You are allowed to walk away from people who only show up when they need something. You are allowed to say no without explaining. You are allowed to hold space for yourself first before holding space for someone else's chaos. Let me say this clearly. You don't owe anyone your energy just because they're in pain. Compassion does not mean self-abandonment. Being kind does not mean being a doormat. And being understanding does not mean tolerating manipulation. The turning point is now. You've seen the patterns. You've felt the pain. And now, you get to make a different choice. A choice to protect your peace, to honor your truth, and to no longer let anyone distort your values for their convenience. From this moment on, start viewing your energy as sacred, because it is. Not everyone should have access to it, especially not people who leave you drained, confused, or questioning your worth. You are not here to fix people who refuse to grow. You are here to evolve and only align with those who are evolving too. Let this be the chapter where you stop explaining your boundaries and start embodying them. Let this be the season where you stop hoping they'll change and start changing what you allow. Let this be your reclaiming, not with anger, not with resentment, but with clarity, love, and a deep knowing that your peace is your responsibility and your birthright. Imagine this. You're standing in a room full of noise people pulling on you, projecting onto you, expecting you to absorb their chaos like you always have. But this time, you don't move. You don't rush to clean it up. You simply exhale, step back, and close the door, not out of spite, but out of self-respect. That moment, that sacred pause, is the beginning of your freedom. You're not walking away from others. You're walking back to yourself, to your clarity, to your center, to your wholeness, because you were never here to be a container for other people's storms. You were always here to be the calm after. So here's what we've uncovered. When Virgo collides with the toxic sides of Gemini, Sagittarius, and Pisces, it's not just a clash of personality, it's a direct assault on your sense of stability, your emotional safety, and your self-worth. And yet, you've endured. You've stayed longer than you should have. You've tried harder than anyone expected. You gave the benefit of the doubt until it nearly cost you your peace. But that was then. This is now. Now. You move differently. You no longer negotiate your values just to maintain harmony. You no longer twist yourself into emotional knots trying to justify what never made sense to begin with. You don't shrink to fit into someone else's chaos. You stand. You choose clarity over confusion, peace over potential, and self-respect over second chances that never go anywhere. This journey isn't about blaming signs or judging others. It's about protecting your spirit. It's about learning to recognize patterns early so you don't lose months or years trying to heal someone who refuses to take responsibility. It's about being honest with yourself about what you feel, what you want, and what you can no longer accept. Because Virgo, the truth is, your light is sacred. Your standards are not the problem, they are the filter. And anyone who tries to convince you to lower them is not meant to stay in your life. So if this video spoke to something deep inside you, don't keep it to yourself. I want to hear your story. Which one of these signs hit hardest for you? Was it the disappearing Gemini, the emotionally elusive Sagittarius, or the endlessly dramatic Pisces? Drop their sign in the comments below, or just a word that sums up how the relationship made you feel. Confused, exhausted, invisible. This is your space to be honest, because your story might be the mirror another Virgo needs to finally see what they've been denying. And if you want more messages like this ones that don't sugarcoat the truth but help you protect your energy, make sure to subscribe and turn on the bell. You're not alone in this, and you deserve relationships that feel like peace, not emotional warfare.